TBD Pod, welcome in everybody. Today we have Raul Alfonso. He is the Executive Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer for Port Tampa Bay. Raul, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you for joining me today.
I mentioned to you that I have enjoyed a few of your podcasts. I love your passion for Tampa, for development, for growth, for the future, and I think we share that.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I've always been passionate about this city, and I guess it just bleeds through when people listen. I can't hide it, you know?
No, and you shouldn't, because we've been here for 12 years now. My family and I, we love Tampa. It's different. I used to travel to Tampa for business, come in and out. I never really enjoyed the flavor of Tampa, what it means, this mixture of cultures. And 12 years here, we don't want to go anywhere, like you have said. So we have great plans for us here in the future.
I've found that a lot of business executives and leaders in government, there's a lot of people that are turning the gears in this city that are on the same page as you, where they're very much invested in our community. They want to be here long term. You know, I don't typically find people that are on the show that say, yeah, I'm doing this gig for 2 years and then I'll head out to the next highest paying market that I can get. You know, it seems like everyone's very committed to this city.
Especially the last few years, where you have seen a transformation of this city that offers the weather, the beautiful beaches, the bay, and you're seeing the historic areas. You're seeing new buildings, new hotels, new restaurants, exciting. So you see the emergence of Water Street, you see Hyde Park, South Tampa, West Shore area. So everything is coming together, and it's not just for work, it's to live, to be able to enjoy it for your family. So it's a great place to be. And I'm very proud and happy to be here working with our team for the last 12 years.
Well, it's turned into a real city, right? I mean, I feel like growing up in the 90s, it was all commuters, and downtown was like suitcase city. You'd have people working from 9 to 5, and after 5 o'clock, they would all leave, and it would be like a ghost town. Mm-hmm. And now our downtown has life, and we're fixing some potholes, and some roads are getting done. It's looking a little nicer around here than it used to.
It does, and sometimes when you go out to a Lightning game or any cultural event and you look out the window and said, where am I? You know,
you're right.
It
Seriously.
looks like very nice. Personally, I would have loved to seen the Rays come our way.
I know.
Because, to have them here, but can't have it all, I guess.
Well, hey, the Port's got some extra real estate downtown, right? Maybe you can strike a deal.
Well, we're fortunate to have a lot of land, and this is our main asset. And look, without a doubt, Port Tampa Bay, as the largest port in Florida in land and in bulk, and I'll go into details, but we are for sure the best prospect for long-term growth for the state of Florida. And believe me, when the state government and the FDOT and we work together with them, they know this, because it's not only our strategic location in Central Florida, the growth that is being generated here, our land availability, and our growth. And I'm proud to say, I have been in this industry for 40 years. So I have been involved in a lot of port developments, working with teams that had the vision and to go get it, to develop it, from Miami in the early stages to Freeport, Bahamas, to Panama. And I worked on those two major transshipment hubs, Jacksonville, Florida, and Tampa. So
wow.
It's always been about development, and we are all very excited, and our team is very focused on future, on the development, because we know what it means. And we are doing a lot of good things that I would love to share with you. Our expansion projects, our master plan, where we're heading with all this.
Well, what is it? Let's talk about what does it mean to have this optimistic future for growth and development of Port Tampa Bay? Like, what does it mean to just the average resident of Tampa or a visitor of Tampa? Like, obviously for the port, if you guys have more cruise ships and you're making more money and you're growing, that's great for you. How does that trickle down? Do we receive like tax dollars from the port? Do we get a cut? How does that all work?
It is. The economic impact of our port to the community and to just the general public, so it's understood. And now we realize that when there is a storm that hits and it troubles the supply chains, and so taking consideration from fuel distribution, we are the energy hub for Central Florida. We provide fuel energy to about 45% of the state, not only for residents, for automobiles, but also for tourism. It's fuel to the Tampa Airport, Orlando Airport, St. Pete.
Wow.
It's tremendous. So our growth is not just for the Tampa Bay region. It's really expanding across Central Florida. And when you look at Florida's growth, and it's projected to be about 1,000 people or more per day moving into our state and in our region, our fuel distribution should be able to grow to be the energy hub for over 50% of the states. So when you look at the state of Florida, you have mainly 3 ports that provide energy: Port Everglades in South Florida, Port Tampa Bay in the Central Florida area, and Jacksonville in the north. So, and then you take our building and construction part, which is all the cargo of steel products, lumber, cement. So imagine, people need to realize when you're building a house, you're fixing your house, it comes through the port.
Wow.
And then the nails, and you go to the hardware store, the furniture that you're going to buy, the clothing. We're handling food distribution, perishables, bananas, pineapples coming through the port. So for everyday people, it's really, when you go to the store, that came from the port. So it affects our lives across the board.
Wow.
We have been diversifying our portfolio, and that is very important because as Florida's most diverse port, we handle the fuel products, building and construction, the aggregates that have been the mainstay for many years, but also now containers, food products, automobiles, lumber, and of course, cruise.
And aggregates being like crushed rocks,
Correct.
phosphate.
Yes, all of the
Right.
above. We have seen tremendous growth. One of our terminals down south is South Bay. As South Bay expanded, we signed about 5 new long-term leases in the last 3 years. These are multinational companies, providers that are setting up their long-term goals here to build Florida through Port Tampa Bay. So we feel very proud of that.
Wow.
Eastport, which is on the causeway.
Can we pull up a map as you're talking about this? Because the port's property is huge. And I think when people think of the port, you know, you're hanging out at Sparkman Wharf and you see these ships and you
Yes.
see the cruise ships, but it's way bigger than that, right? Because this entire peninsula, zoom out, David, for people just listening, it's like this huge peninsula on the east side, the kind of southeast side of downtown. Now that's all port, correct?
That is all port.
Now, when you say, you said Eastport, you've said a couple different terms.
Okay, let's focus on Hooker's Point. That is the main peninsula. So here on the west side, we handle most of our liquid bulk, fuel and petroleum across the area. On the right side, we handle break bulk cargoes, the lumber, the steel products. And then down south is where we handle our container business and the refrigerated products, and we are building a logistics park there. That is Hooker's Point. This is the terminal where it's the mainstay for our consumer products coming in. Then when I said Eastport, if you look at east, that the causeway down below in the center, correct? No, above. That one right there, the thin one.
The thin one.
Yes.
Right next to the road.
Right. So we just signed a long-term lease there with Agunsa AGS, who is a Chilean conglomerate. They have started to bring break bulk products and handle materials there. We just received a $22 million grant to further expand that. So tremendous growth that we're going to receive there. South Bay is about 15 miles south. Keep in mind, like you said, you look at one terminal and we haven't touched Channel side.
Right.
We have other terminals in Pendola Point, which is across here at the bottom.
Where the power plant is?
Right there. So we have a couple of bulk operations. And then the South Bay area is 50 miles south by Big Bend.
Okay.
So that facility there,
Where it says Gibsonton?
at the top.
Down south.
Down south, down south. I'm sorry.
What city? Adamsville?
No, right there. Right. I think I need a pointer.
We need to get you a laser pointer. Zoom
Right.
in right here, David.
Yes, right there.
Where the manatee viewing
Okay,
center
but this is very old. You see that there, what it says, Port Tampa Bay
Got it.
on top?
Yes.
Okay, that is all developed now.
Oh, wow.
We only have about 15 acres left. We have 5 new leases. We have Conagra moved there from downtown.
Yeah.
That allowed SPP to build. That's where they located. We have Logistec that is operating there. And we have Sesco, an Egyptian aggregate company and cement company.
Yeah.
And 3 other new ones that this has exploded in the last 3 years.
So what do you, first of all, has the port always owned this property, or is this a new purchase in recent years?
No, I believe this purchase was done about 15 to 20 years ago. So once again, you have to have the vision to continue growing.
And it just stayed empty for a
a
decade
while.
plus.
Yes.
In anticipation of this growth.
Correct.
Now, what do you attribute all of this growth to? It sounds like there's, first of all, massive grant money coming your way, but also businesses. I mean, all these tenants are coming and wanting a place in Port Tampa.
Absolutely. And at the base of our strategic business plan and master plans is Florida's growth. As Florida growth, we need this type of materials. We need the aggregates, the cement, the rebars, the steel products. So that's where we have been heading. And if we don't have this, guess what? You're going to have to go further away ports, truck the materials.
Well, it's like what
area.
happened during COVID, right? In Los Angeles and in Long Beach, when you have issues over there, they affect us. I would assume if we could handle most of what we need in the state, maybe we wouldn't be relying on ports across the country and regionally.
And I'm smiling because you hit on a key point for us. Container business. From Asia, the main imports of consumer products. Savannah is the South Atlantic hub. So they still handle about 60 to 65% of Florida's volumes. So when you mention COVID and the supply chain disruption, think of in the United States, there are 5 hubs that handle 75% of the imports to the country. 5.
Wow.
New York, New Jersey, LA, Long Beach, Houston, Savannah, and the Pacific Northwest. So when there is a disruption on trades, they all get clogged. So now we are becoming an alternative. Our market, Florida, specifically Central Florida, is by far the largest consumer market in the Southeast. We are over 40% of the consumer market of the 7 southeastern states.
Including Atlanta, Georgia?
Including Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
Right. Now, Savannah has done great for over the last 30 years. They built their distribution centers there, attracted the big box importers, the Walmarts, Home Depot, Lowe's, Target. And slowly but surely, we are seeing our new services that started only in 2019 to come here with container products from Asia. And we have gone from a port that handled, on the average, about 40,000 containers. We're about to handle 300,000 this year. We're aiming to handle 350,000 next year. And my goal is that within the next 2-3 years, we're over the 500,000 mark.
That's a crazy jump, 40,000 to 300?
Yes, and it's because it's a superior supply chain. When the services come to Tampa and you look at the I-4 corridor and all the distribution centers that are growing tremendously,
right.
Not only the I-4 corridor, but I-75. So you have the receivers of the merchandise, Rooms to Go, City Furniture, the others. What they can do is get one driver to perform 3 or 4 round trips a day. That's very efficient.
Well, goods coming into Port Tampa, I mean, we are within an 8-hour drive of, 30, 40 million people. I mean, we are, first of all, Florida has over 20. Mm-hmm. We're in Central Florida. 23. So you could have goods come into Port Tampa and be in Miami in a few hours, be up north in Jacksonville in a few hours.
Exactly. And because the networks that had been set up for many years, South Florida, handling a lot of the Latin American cargo, Savannah, it's been like funnels coming into our market. Where our opportunity comes. That's why we are succeeding. That's why we're getting the new services. And today we will be announcing a new service coming in, starting early next year. So we're very proud of what we're doing. But remember, and let's go back to 12 years ago. I came here with Paul Anderson. We were both in Jacksonville, and we saw the opportunity. We went after the great opportunity to become an alternative for our market. We knew that the supply chain was superior, that the savings are over $1,000 per container just to come to Tampa. We had to rebrand our port. We went from Port Tampa Bay, from the Tampa Port Authority to Port Tampa Bay to make it a regional port and change the perception that we were just a bulk port. It takes years. And slowly but surely, our customers are demanding our services. The carriers are coming. Now we're working on logistics. When you look at Florida, huge consumer market, 80% of the trucks that come from out of state for domestic and imported cargo that come here, 80% of those go back empty, northbound. So when you said we can reach those markets, huge economies.
Wow.
Where you can service Florida and then from Tampa pick up cargo and move it to other states.
Yeah.
It's happening right now. We have customers that are moving bananas and pineapples throughout the Midwest, the Southeast. We're working with the rail to move cargo northward. So all this is happening. It's very exciting, but it's all new. New from the old just bulk, feed the containers into Tampa, and we were so.
Does the logistics of Tampa Bay geographically play a role, right? Because if you're shipping goods from China, Japan, from Asia, the closest port by far is probably like Long Beach in California, right? Yeah. So how would you incentivize a ship to go? Where would they go? Panama Canal to?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, you have the West Coast shuttles, like they call it, are dependent on a lot of rail, intermodal rail, feeding into the East port. So the emergence of the East Coast population shift is helping. It's helping the U.S., the Gulf ports. Post the Panama Canal expansion in 2016, remember that's when we got our cranes. Then the Port of Houston had been growing. Now they are becoming a huge hub into the Gulf. Then Houston, Mobile, New Orleans, and Tampa. So we are part of that U.S. Gulf that offers a better service. We are still in need of services from South America, which we are going to start getting with a new service. We're very excited about what we're doing. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of convincing. And without a doubt, we believe that within the next 3 to 5 years, we are going to be the best hub for logistics and distribution into this market. And then connecting northward. So that's in the container business. We haven't forgotten about our break bulk, our fruits, perishables, all that.
Well, and this is all just shipping. We haven't even really touched on cruises, which we can get into a little later. I did want to touch on a point. You said 45% of the state's fuel, including what? Jet fuel, diesel, this
Correct.
Is fuel, period, comes through the Port of Tampa.
Yes.
So is that the reason why when we were hit with a hurricane, it was hard to get fuel here? Because that's like half the state's fuel, boom, shut off like that?
Yeah, imagine when there are storms approaching and the public goes and they're told to fill the tanks.
Right.
They've been doing this for a while. So the demand had been there for several days. Then you got the port closes down. Usually it's about 24 hours. U.S. Coast Guard, they shut down the channels. So we have no vessels coming in with fuel while the demand is very high. Then you go through the storm, another 24 to 36 hours. We have to do a survey to assess damages to the channel, to the terminals.
Make sure it's safe to come back.
So when you go through this whole process, the fuel intake has been stopped, disrupted for maybe 3, 4, 5 days. But now with TICO, and the state has made it very, very clear, we are at the number 2 priority level. Hospitals, number 1, the fuel distribution, number 2. So very quickly, We were able to get back on the terminals being operational, start the distribution, and we're looking to even improve that. We have been discussing how the fuel distribution is communicated to the community. It's something that is going to take some time, but the community at such days that there is an emergency, they need to know how many trucks are leaving, where are they going to the different retailers. And remember, we have about 7 of the major retailers food for distribution in our port terminals. So it's very, very important.
What retailers, as in who? Would these
Well,
be familiar companies?
Oh, yes, the racetracks, the Wawas, and then we have Marathon, and so on and so forth.
Got
And
it.
some of them sell to the smaller retailers that could be the 7-Elevens,
Right.
K stores,
All the
or
mom
Shell.
and pop
Correct.
places.
Correct.
So how does that work if the Coast Guard shuts down the port and says, hey, you can't bring a container boat in here, you can't bring a fuel ship in here? How would it, like, what do they do? Do they just sit out in the ocean and wait for the storm to pass?
Immediately we start getting emails and calls from our ocean carriers. And we get calls from the receivers, our customers. What's going to happen? I have 100 containers sitting out there. Can we get them in before? The answer is no. I'm sorry, we don't have control. So we are very involved with that in communications between the customers, the terminal operators, the carriers, and yes, they have to deviate. And sometimes, if the disruption is going to go for 3 to 5 days, we may lose that ship going to another port because they have to maintain their itinerary integrity.
Right.
And if we are the last port on the Gulf run, they got to go through the Panama Canal. They have their appointments for a certain days. So sometimes they have to discharge a bunch of containers somewhere just to get them here the next week.
Wow.
So it's a total disruption. And then that's how, when we are the buyers, the receivers, and we go to the stores and the shelves are empty, it's because of that. We are not receiving the ships are not being handled, we're not delivering to the distribution centers, and it's not going to the stores.
And so the port makes money by essentially charging these ships whatever fee it would be to drop off their goods. Is that how it works?
We are a landlord port. So basically, we have tenants that are the operators. In this case, Ports America, who is the largest terminal operator in the U.S. They are our container terminal operators. We have another operator called Port Logistics Refrigerated Services, PLRS, who handles bananas and pineapples. Those are the operators. So
you're a huge real estate company, essentially.
That's what we are.
Wow.
So we have long-term leases with the tenants. Depending on their investment and commitments and the type of commodities, the leases tend to fluctuate. Some of the leases, we invest in infrastructure. Some of the leases, with the right capital investment from the private sector, we're able to go to the state or federal for grants to help us with infrastructure needs. Some don't require it. Mm-hmm. So depending on that, you may have a 20-year lease with a couple of 5 or 10 years extension. We can go up to 40 years, for example, long-term leases. Then we have the fees, the port fees, where we generate revenues from the wharfage of the cargo based on the tariff, dockage based on the vessel's size, LOA, length overall of the vessel per 24-hour day, and a minor harbor maintenance fee. So with all that, that's how we generate our revenues, leases and port fees.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. Very interesting. So you're not in the business of logistics, so to speak, or of shipping yourselves, right? Companies don't come to you and say, hey, we need this to go to this location, or they might need help with being pointed in the right direction, but you're basically a landlord that operates this port.
Yes.
Interesting.
And we are very active as a conduit of businesses because of the nature of we are the new kids on the block in that industry, containers. For example, the bulk business, they don't require much attention. They bring their materials, they have their assets at the terminals, and they operate. We help them with that and whatever their requirements might be.
Yeah.
But on the new business, like containers, logistics, distribution, we are more involved in identifying their needs, how can we help, and link the terminal operator with the customers and the ocean carriers.
And out of the port's revenue, right? How do containers stack up? Then, now, and then what do you see in the future? Like, how big of a revenue chunk are these is the container business?
All right. So containers used to be maybe 3-4%. Right now it's 8, pushing 10%.
Wow.
Our goal is to be double digit in the different, to have bulk, break bulk, containers. Cruise is 20 to 22%. Cruise is very
Cruise
important.
is 20+% currently.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So we are getting so close with the
So y'all are
containers.
making more money on those cruise ships than you do from those containers right now, currently?
Right now, yes.
Wow.
Yes. So, there are ports in Florida and the larger ports, the ones that are doing the 5 million to 6 million passengers. We are approaching 1.5 million, very respectable. But those ports are mostly dependent on cruise. It's like 60 to 80% of their revenue are from cruise. So when COVID came, they got hurt.
Right.
We weren't. We lost 22% of our revenues, but we grew. We grew in all the other business areas.
David, can you look up, what are those huge cranes that pick up the containers called?
It's ship-to-shore gantry cranes.
Gantry?
Gantry
Could
cranes.
you pull a picture of that up? Because I've noticed those in the past few years. There's more and more. There's got to be, 4 or 5 now?
Right now, there are 5 there.
5.
Yeah.
And they're huge. Like when you're coming down the crosstown, you can see these things. Or you can even see them on Bayshore Boulevard.
Yeah,
like if you're out for a walk, look across the bay and you can see these huge things. They're massive.
And these are what you call post-Panamax, ship-to-shore gantry crane. Once the Panama Canal expanded in 2016, it allowed for the larger vessels of 10, 12,000 TEUs to come in through the canal. So we need to order and purchase alongside Ports America cranes that are suitable to handle those ships. So they have to be higher, wider in their reach, and of course more expensive.
How much are we talking? What do these things cost?
Anywhere from 13 million to 15 million
For one.
to 60 million per crane.
Wow.
Yeah. And each crane productivity is measured in about 30 to 35, 40 moves per crane hour. So if you have a vessel coming in discharging 1,000 containers, you better have at least 3 of these cranes doing about 100 containers per hour. So within 8 to 10 hours, that ship can operate and move.
That's how long it takes.
It is.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then imagine when there are disruptions to the services itinerary, because there's always delays out of the port or the weather, whatever it be. It places a lot of pressure on the operations to produce, to get them in and out quicker. And of course, we don't want to have a ship that needs to sail without loading 50 containers of exports. We need that to go. Ports America, our partner, and ourselves, we are just completing the expansion of the terminal. I mentioned that we're doing about 300,000 TEUs annually. The terminal capacity is going to be close to between 700,000 to 1 million. We are ready space-wise. So in capacity, we are ready. We need 2 more cranes. We're looking to purchase 2 more cranes, hopefully to be delivered and operational within 2.5 years. They have just expanded their gate system. They have a new 6-lanes gate system because a lot of the larger importers that are coming in, they need to move 40, 50 containers a day.
Wow.
So imagine that.
Yeah.
There is a new reservation system, and it's all about productivity and efficiency. The terminal averages 2 moves, bringing 1 container back empty or loaded, and picking another one up in about 30 minutes.
Hold that shot, David.
Hold
right
that
there.
shot. That is
So this is a future plan?
That is a future plan when you see a full 100-acre terminal. The corner, whiwhich is berth 214, The yard area is going to be completed within a month. Now, the last berth, where you see the last vessel, we already have a grant. We are going to start building, extending that berth. So that's what a container port should look like.
Right.
We are just getting there. We're halfway there. So in the center, you see 3 warehouses. We have an intermodal yard. An intermodal yard is a rail yard adjacent to the container terminal that we could use in the future. I'm saying the future because the current volumes that are coming in as it's almost 100% truck. Very few volumes go to the rail. For those volumes, you truck to 50th Street, which is about 7 miles, and the CSX rail loads it there on their tracks. So the whole notion of serving Florida by truck and then other states by rail, this will be very, very important. The warehouses, the one on the right, we're just going to start. The company that signed the lease this year, Agunza.
Are you talking about across the water?
No, right there, right in the center.
Got it.
Those 3 warehouses.
Yeah.
We are creating there. We want to create a very efficient logistics hub. Container terminal, rail intermodal, transloading facility. You get a container, an ocean container there to the warehouse. I'm going to call you a strip it. A strip it means you take the cargo out and you transload it. You load it into a 53-foot domestic. Remember that I mentioned those containers that come into Orlando, Lakeland. They're leaving empty looking for cargo. We want to give them cargo here to take to other states.
Gosh, you guys have came such a long way. Like, first of all, the first crane was put up when? I think you mentioned it, but remind me.
It was before we got here.
But not that long, maybe 10 years ago?
Well,
12?
If you're talking about the new post-Panamax cranes.
These big cranes,
When we got here, we knew we needed to add the cranes. And with Port America, we purchased the 2 cranes, and they were operational towards the middle of 16.
Middle of 16. So they haven't even been there 10 years.
No.
So with all, my point was going to be, with all of this happening and what you're explaining here in the future with this transit hub, you've only scratched the surface of what's to come.
That's what I like about you, because you can see what I'm trying to say. We just started to scratch the surfaces. So this is so meaningful for us. And most important for that industry and for the others, for the bulk, is our future dredging project. It has already been approved by the Corps of Engineers. We are now going to go into the final authorization, appropriations, and hopefully we can get to work around 2027. And I would love to see this completed by 2030. I don't know if you recall, our master plan is Vision 2030. So all this is coming together.
Pull that up, David, because that has a lot of good, fun graphics and pictures on it. I wanted to talk about those 2 things, though, dredging, and then I want to talk about the Skyway and how that bridge probably is a little bit of a roadblock to larger ships that are taller, right?
It's a beautiful bridge.
It's very good looking, but some of those new cruise ships can't fit under it.
You're right.
And I wonder if that affects shipping, too. Or are those shipping ships much lower?
It affects the Skyway Bridge at 185 feet of air draft. The newer cruise ships require 200. So basically, yes, there is a restriction there. For the foreseeable future, the container ships that are coming into the Gulf will not be restricted. 10,000 TEUs, 12,000 TEUs, we are okay.
TU is a ton?
It's a TU is a 20-foot equivalent unit. So for every 40-foot container, that is 2 TUs. One 20-foot contaner is 1 TU.
Got it.
So that's the unit.
It's a measurement of how much cargo
of the
is
containers. We don't foresee that in the U.S. Gulf, the ships are going to get higher than the 14,000 TEUs or so. But we know that we must stay alongside the ports of Houston and mobile if we want to continue to be part of that. That's
And
what we're dredging.
and what are these companies looking for when they're selecting? Do they decide on, hey, we're going to pick Tampa or Houston, right? Like, how do they decide where to go? Because if you're shipping something from Asia or from Europe, what's the difference in like 6, 8, even 24 hours of travel time? Is that a big deal to these companies when you're talking about
It,
weeks at sea?
it is a big deal, but it is the customer, the cargo decides. When the customers that are continue to grow along the I-4 corridor and they see the opportunity, they, alongside ourselves, go together to the ocean carrier and says, I want a Tampa service. If you come to Tampa, I'm going to sign a contract for 5,000, 10,000 containers. That's why they come here. Now, when a carrier must make a decision on that, it is, okay, do I have enough transit times to make it to Tampa? Do I eliminate another port? How do I mix my... And something very interesting just happened this year. There are very few alliances. I don't know if you want me to go into it. So last year at the top was the 2M Alliance. It was MSC, Mediterranean Shipping Company, the world's number one, Maersk Line, the world's number two. They formed an alliance and they brought together Zimline. They had a service in Tampa. The other service was composed of Costco, CMA CGM, OOCL, and Evergreen. And that's a French line, a Chinese line, a Taiwanese line. So they work together on these alliances. Now, the 2M Alliance decided to split for 2025. So there will be no more 2M Alliance. So now we'll get MSC with Zim on one service, Costco with Evergreen, and CMA CGM and OOCL on the other. And we're getting Maersk, that we'll be announcing today, coming on another service of their own.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any ones you're missing? I mean, it sounds like you've hit.
Yeah, there is one alliance that we miss, and it's called the ONE Alliance, and it's composed of MOL. They were all the old Japanese carriers they together. So there are 4 alliances. We got 3.
These companies are so massive. It sounds like there's a pretty tight hold on, what would you call this part of the business? Is this logistics? Is this distribution? Like they're just the company that takes your goods from Asia to America, essentially, right?
Ocean transportation, and it's very asset.
But you
heavy.
only ever see 8 or 5 companies on the side of these containers. There's not that many.
There used to be 30 or plus.
Yeah.
So we have, those are the major ocean carriers. Those are the ones that are the signatures to the ILA contracts. When you heard about the strike, those are the ones that would impact on the container side. There are other smaller regional carriers that are not affected. And we do have carriers like Dole bringing fruit here, Sea Trade with their Seacat line bringing also service in Central America. We have another small line. Those are separate. They're smaller. So we have the advantage of being flexible. We have the ILA on one side, and we have non-union operations on the other.
And what does ILA stand for?
International Longshoremen Association.
Got it. And they had a strike recently.
Yes.
And can you explain the effects of that, number one, and number two? I saw the governor had National Guard come in and help offload cargo. What happened with all that?
Well, it was a very aggressive position on their part because we stayed in close contact with the ocean carriers who are negotiating.
Point this at your mouth.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
no.
So we are very close with the carriers, so we were following the developments. The union was not coming to the table, as we were told. And one day we said, okay, we're not going to impact your cruise or military, nor break bulk, only containers. Then they changed their mind. They said, no, we are going to impact break bulk as well. And we were hoping for a short strike, which it happened. It was only 3 days. But it's not all done. They agreed on wages. They haven't agreed on automation, and that is going to be huge because automation is what all these terminal operators and carriers want to have. More computerized system, more efficiencies. So that's to be negotiated. Hopefully, they come to an agreement on all. I always believe that there will be an agreement towards January.
And who are the people that are a part of the ILA? Who are the people that are protected? Is it the people that are working on the ships, unloading the ships,
Yes.
trucking?
Is basically the longshoremen are the longshoremen that handle the cranes and the trucks
The
and the
crane
equipment.
operators.
Correct. They have the checkers that do the clerical work as well. And in certain locations, it goes into trucking and maintenance of equipment and so on. We are fortunate. We have a pretty positive
Yeah.
on the U.S. South Atlantic, and it covers the East Coast, but also the Gulf. So we benefit from that. Usually it has been that the West Coast were more strict, and they have had more lengthy strikes.
Well,
there.
they're so big out there,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And they've had many decades of huge operations where we're kind of just getting started.
Yeah.
So with regards to automation, the association is probably fearful that a lot of jobs will be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the port fall into that? Do you look to the association to make those decisions and then you will kind of abide by them, or like what say does the port have locally?
We don't get involved in it. We support our terminal operators. They are the ones who have to invest and have to come to the bargaining table. Of course, we want to be able to provide the most efficient port, the great infrastructure for them. We're in the process of hardening our Hookers Point terminal, which means we are investing $40 million on the electrical wiring just to make sure that it's protected for the future. TICO is investing $4.5 million in elevating the substation. We just got an EPA grant also to further study on electrification of all the terminals.
Yeah.
So that means the gantry cranes, the container trucks, and so on and so forth. And we are working through that with all the terminal operators. Our goal is to get us to be a zero emission port. It's going to take some time.
So you guys are very much focused on resiliency, supporting your tenants,
Yep.
making sure everything runs as smooth and as efficient as possible. You're not really getting into the weeds of the positions of the ILA and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I was my only thought on that, and you don't have to say a word, is if the country is moving towards an autonomous environment, whether it's self-driving vehicles or whatever that may be, and there's certain technologies that come out that can make goods and services cheaper for Americans, people that live in this country, people that visit this country, isn't that a better priority than really anything else? Like the goal is to protect the consumer. And if you have an association that's saying, nah, you guys cannot implement that new technology because we'll have to let go a certain number of people that work here. For instance, if those cranes were automatic and they have more efficiently unloaded cargo, right? It seems like there's definitely a balance to be had. But I guess that's with any industry.
It's not only the United States; it's global. I mean, European ports and so on, and it's
and everyone's dealing with this at the same time too.
Exactly, because and you have heard them. It's if there is a strike here, it will affect the supplying countries, China, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
so,
I guess it's an international issue that's really not only related to shipping, but everything, the automation conversation.
Yep, absolutely.
Let's talk about cruises. We touched a little bit about how cruises are over 20% of the port's business, which is an incredible number.
It is.
But not big enough to maybe tie you down if there was ever another COVID event.
No, we're fortunate.
Kind of a healthy number, right?
It is. It's very healthy. Cruises, overall, ports love cruises. And it's not because it's sexy, it's because there's a lot of revenue to be generated. Cruise in Tampa Bay is great for us, not only for the port, but what we're seeing is year in, year out, we have gone from, in about 6, 7, 8 years, 500,000 passengers. We have tripled it to 1.5 million right now. Each vessel that calls here, cruise ship, It's estimated that it has an economic impact in our region of about $360,000. It's a big number. And we are not a place where they just fly in and jump on the ship.
Right.
No, they come here because they like what we're doing. Water
Well, your
Street,
location.
the walkability, the location. They're spending 2 to 3 nights at hotels here. They're going to the beaches. So it's a little bit more than just a home port.
Mm-hmm.
We are becoming a destination for our travelers.
Well, I would even argue that there's a lot more to come too, because first of all, there's a ton of land in front of those cruise ship terminals that could be developed with restaurants and retail and shopping and all that sort of stuff. So that number of economic output from those cruise ship passengers could absolutely increase.
It could. And we are in a situation right now that
Plus, they look really cool. Look at that.
It's great.
When you're at Sparkman Wharf and there's one chilling like right there,
Yes.
it's so fun to look at. It's awesome.
And we are chock-a-block right now. Our terminals are full. We need more terminals. We have had to refuse cruise
Wow.
itineraries right now. We have had to juggle to accommodate an itinerary to go from a Saturday to a Sunday, and they are able to do that. So there is a demand, there is a need for capacity. And when you look at Water Street, the Sparksman Wharf, the aquarium, our cruise terminals, our land, what Daryl shows vision is showing for Ybor, you cannot help to get excited about that. We're smack in the middle. We have a vision that we're working on with partners, and I can see it. I think that you can see it. We're able to see a continuation of this modern city that is going to attract more people to work, to live there. You mentioned walkability, accessibility. There are ways to find out how to do it. Paths that link one area to the other. So we're not ready to come out with a revision of that master plan. We did that in 2016. We're hoping that maybe in about a year and a half, we'll be able to come out. And then it will be not only everything that we have been doing in the cargo side and all the expansion and Florida's growth, but the enormous potential that we see for channel side, for our cruise industry, and for the beauty of our region. Without a doubt. And yes, we have a restriction on the smaller vessels.
Yeah, but because of the Skyway, correct?
Exactly. So we cannot accommodate ships of 5,000, 6,000 passengers, but we are in close contact with our cruise lines. They see the future. They love it here. They want it. So we can become, when I said the best niche port, doing 2.5, 3 million passengers with another 1 or 2 cruise terminals. We'll see what happens there.
On the Skyway, how old is that bridge? Maybe 30 years old? Was it built in the 90s? Do you know? Look that up, David. Just because the only reason I say that is, bridges get old and bridges need to be replaced. And I wonder if it could be replaced with a taller bridge. I'm not talking about today or tomorrow. I'm talking 10, 20 years down the road. If that would help us get the new big ships, if that would help us get future cargo, it sounds like it would be a good investment to go bigger on the next one.
It sounds like it would. We've had the discussions with
87?
Yep.
Okay.
We have had the discussion with the FDOT, and we were looking, are there possibilities to create a center allowance for the taller vessels? We're talking about 15 feet. And they looked at it, they evaluated. There's no doing. At the present time, there is no economic reason for this to be looked at.
Well, we're talking about a lot of money.
It is. It is. So, and then, that's the bridge. In the past, there were talks of building something outside the bridge, but then it's a lot of money.
Or a tunnel.
And there is what is the environmental impact. We feel that there is not a need for us to look at that yet. We feel very strong about the future for our cruise business around channel side. That is going to have a tremendous impact in the area. in the development of residence and commercial and future.
I want to talk specifically about that area. Could you go to Google Maps or maybe even on the port's website? I'm sure they have a map that shows the port's property. And actually, what you could pull up too, David, and maybe you could help pull it up is the master plan, the original one. I know this was conceptual. It's not your official position now. Where this is master plan. This is the new. No, this includes what I'm talking about. Yeah, scroll down. They have a plan that was released. This is 2016. This is on the east side of downtown, kind of where the cruise ships are, where all those parking lots are. Yeah, but scroll down and see if they have a picture of. There was like huge condominium towers proposed.
I know what you're looking for.
Yeah, it's just conceptual, people. Don't take it to heart.
Absolutely.
But the reason why I want to pull it up is the forward-thinking vision
I think
you talk so much about.
You passed it. It's right there.
Just
right there.
You could just do Google image port master plan, because this is only showing a zoomed-in view.
Yeah.
And I want people to see this vision that the port had, because talk about ambitious. This was a hugely ambitious plan for the port on the east side of downtown. This included like parks, condominiums, like it was an amazing space to complement on the east side of downtown.
You know, what Jeff Vinnick and SBP have done it on the Water Street side, you would agree with me that this could be on a timeline very well continued with more development, attracting more residents, more fun places to visit, enhancing the overall area.
I'm looking for a zoomed out view right there on the top right. Okay. So when this first got put out, I thought, first of all, how are they going to get those two huge buildings right there with Peter and Knight Airport, right? That'd be kind of a hard thing to do.
I guess consultant went crazy there.
You know what, though? I love consultants like that. It doesn't mean that's what's going to happen for sure, but it shows you, hey, let's think big, man. Like, let's go all the way with our plan. We can dial it down later, but we need to be ambitious and optimistic about our city. So obviously this was maybe overly optimistic, but at this point, knowing what we know, the success of Water Street, the ambition of Daryl Shaw, all the development in downtown, and especially what you've seen in Channelside, right? You have an urban neighborhood right next to the port's property.
Yeah.
What is the port's new position on this sliver of downtown?
Channelside?
Yes, this little Channelside sliver that you guys own.
I think we need to fully evaluate this for the next year, like I mentioned, and we are in discussions. It will be something that is going to make sense, not only to us, but to the partners. And, and we need the city on board, and we need the strategic partners to be able to implement this regional development. This is not us saying this is what's going to go here. So the vision that we should all share is that this could be, and I will say will be, a very attractive residential commercial area filled with fun activities that preserve the cruise industry, our business, that continues to bring the millions of cruise passengers that are going to be spending money here. Working together, I think we will accomplish all that. Right now, I can't tell you anything else.
It's very early on,
yes,
of course.
Yes.
But it sounds like the port is committed to being absolutely a part of the conversation, right? You want to work with, there's future plans for a river walk. You have Ybor Harbor with Daryl Shaw. You guys are right next to Water Street. I mean, you have the aquarium next door. You really are in the middle of a massive amount of development. So to work with all those people and to figure out a plan that kind of is all interconnected makes complete sense.
Absolutely.
So for cruise ships being over a fifth, right? A little over a fifth of the revenue of the port. And from a logistical standpoint, right? Parking and traffic, there's a lot of people getting in and out of these ships. Has the port ever considered moving the cruise ships to either Hooker's Point or a different area of Hillsborough County? Does that make sense at all from your perspective?
No, I don't believe that there is an adequate area where you can just shift.
Yeah.
And look, and we get a lot of visitors that come in to speculate because they see the beautiful waters and the potential for
Right.
development, and they may talk about moving the oil tanks and getting rid of them. And it will slow your horses.
Right.
Let's be real here. You're talking about billions of dollars in assets, and so everything can be done, but it has to be prudent. It has to be done in a controlled manner with our partners that align our visions. It's, I think that and I don't want to say a year or two, but we're all going to be very happy when we said, this is where this is our goal. This is where we're headed.
Yeah. I don't get moving the gas tanks. I mean,
Oh, believe me, they have mentioned it.
Well, but here's the thing. You kind of are in a weird position because you have so much development, a lot of residents come into that area, and then right next door you've got these huge gas tanks. I understand the logic of what some of those people are saying, but the gas tanks have been there for a long time.
And look, and you have silos that are not attractive to look at when you're on a cruise.
Well, y'all painted them with some
exactly.
dolphins.
So
and
you
stuff.
gotta, and talking to Daryl, I mean, he could say, well, those silos could become a very nice rooftop restaurant in the future or something. That's the way that he thinks, which is very intuitive.
But he's not with gasoline in them, right?
No.
He's talking about vacating.
We have some vacant silos that are old. So what do you do with them? Not we,
someone else.
Someone else.
You're just the landlord.
That's right.
Okay. So, but he does kind of bring up an interesting point. Zoom in on that top part because Ybor Harbor is going to be this north section where these dry docks are, right? And if you're just listening, this is all the way up in Ybor Channel, right? Where you kind of have the slim waterway going north. Daryl bought this parcel to the northeast, correct? Where that line of trees is, right? The south of that, you have the gas. Am I correct on that? Just so we understand where we're at here.
I don't know the details. I don't know if he has the right to buy or he bought them,
but that's kind of the plan, right?
Yes.
To me, and this is my opinion, I think it's kind of cool to have a shipping industry on a waterfront. You could be at a waterfront restaurant and see these big ships and the workers. I think it's cool. I think it adds to the history of our city. I think it gets people thinking about logistics and all this kind of cool stuff. People don't think about this when they pump gas. No. They don't think about where the gas comes from. I think it's fascinating. Almost half the gas comes from Port Tampa Bay.
Correct.
How cool is that?
Correct.
So I don't think it's necessarily a negative to have it right there. And I also think there's things you can do to mitigate some of the air quote ugliness of it. You can paint them, do murals, put up a big privacy wall, right? There's things you can do that don't require you to spend $10 billion moving all this stuff.
And thinking strategically as well, we are the largest port in Tampa Bay region, and there is a lot of potential for further growth. It's not, there is a possibility of shifting operations that make sense to go in other locations and so on and so forth. Everything takes planning, everything takes investment, but aligning with the right partners and our customers and tenants, and that is what it's all about.
Has there ever, this just seems so big to me and ambitious, and you guys have so much real estate, and it's in such a strategic, awesome position in our urban core. Has there been another port that you can look to that kind of dealt with these, I'll say problem, right? Where you have this massive city that's developed in the last 10 years or so, and with future plans to go even bigger, all these changes and all these new buildings. Then you have a port right next door. Is there like another, like Washington, D.C.? I know they built a big wharf in their port area. Like, you've worked at a lot of different ports,
I'm thinking, I'm going throughout, and look, the Asian countries, and they have the capability of just building a port out of nowhere.
They'll build them on like an island.
Absolutely.
Right.
There are other ports that are landlocked. They stymied, that can't grow any further. They're limited in their efficiency and capabilities. They are places where they have moved the port to a newer area that was vacated or so on and so forth. So each port is different. And I like that Paul always said, when you see a port, you see them all. No, you don't. We're all different. There is not a perfect port. Forget it. We all have our advantages, our challenges, and we got to navigate through those. I'm excited about navigating through these challenges that we have because it's they all point in the right direction. It's positive, it's growth, and we're on our way to do this.
These are all great problems to have and to sort through.
We don't see, I don't see it as problems.
You're
It's
right.
opportunities.
I should have used the word challenge. Would
Yeah.
have been a better word.
And look, very, very humbly, I've been offered opportunities to go work somewhere else. No, I love it here. I like the team that I'm with. We love our plans. We're so busy. I don't want to go anywhere.
Yeah. Well, and first of all, thank you, because I think you're awesome and you're a
Thank
total
you.
champion of our region. And I know you love Tampa and the history here. And why would you? Look at the opportunity.
Yep.
I mean, the amount of space the port owns, the growth metrics, the fact we're in Central Florida, like every by any statistic, you're in the right spot
Yes.
to do some awesome things.
Port Tampa Bay is in the right spot in Central Florida.
Yeah.
And we are really doing some great things. And we want to have our community learn more. Lisa, who is not here now, we have a monthly tour with our Starship. It gets sold out within minutes. People coming to go on a water tour to learn about the port. This is regular. We need to announce it in your podcast.
Let's
We need
do
to
it right
that.
now. So how does it work? Is it through the History Center or do you guys
We
put
do
it on?
We do it, and we'll get all the information out. It just goes, and it's great because they're learning. They're learning everything that we're talking about. And you have my personal invitation. You're coming on a tour.
I'm coming.
We're going to do all this because it's exciting. It's an industry that some people just know about the cruise. Some people don't realize where their fuel comes from or their furniture and clothes. And it's very, very important.
So it looks like it's mostly every Friday. What do you have? July, April. The next one's November 8th, which is this Friday. I'm sure this episode will come out after that. But you can get tickets. What is it? porttb.com/harbor-tours. Cool. Yeah, we got to check that out. I wanted to ask you about the port. There's like some port, I think it's oil and gas in South Tampa, Picnic Island. Do y'all own that?
Oh my God, I wish I had Charles Klug here. You know Charles is our chief legal officer.
Okay.
He's our historian. But we maintain control of that, but I believe that was already being sold. The port used to own that. Don't correct me, I don't believe that that's part of our footprint.
But so do you know details? Because that's gasoline, right? I mean, aren't
Yeah,
they?
but we do have a lot of private terminal operators. So imagine our Port Tampa Bay owns about 3,500 acres of land right now.
Okay.
That's our public. The private sector, there is another 1,500 acres. So overall, the whole complex of the Tampa Bay region, the port, is over 5,000 acres.
That's crazy. That's a ton of space.
So imagine this.
But that partnership, just let me pause
Yes.
you just to understand, meaning that land is held privately. You are paid to essentially operate.
No, they
no.
operate. They do everything there.
So what's your
we just control. We manage the water and permitting and so on and so forth.
and have interactions with like Coast Guard stuff like that?
Correct.
So you charge that landowner like a management fee?
There is certain fees for approvals and maintenance and so on. And our team, real estate and legal, sometimes they're called to mitigate or be present in some legal action that a marina may have. I don't get involved in.
Look how
in a
big
lot of
Hooker's Point is from this view.
Yes.
This top-down view.
Yes.
What a massive space that is only like half built out realistically?
No, Hooker's Point, we still have.
There's a lot of redevelopment though.
Yes, but we still have there about 70 to 80 acres that we have planned for. And,
Wow.
and we are in discussion constantly about what, where, and who. So that is going to be key. But Eastport, where we're going to be adding another 12 acres. So that's going to go from an 18-acre terminal at the Causeway. That's the one higher, right across from higher, there. So in 2 or 3 years, that will be a 30-acre terminal. We're going to be extending that berth. There are plans for an additional rail, but the long-term plans, you want to see another peninsula being built there.
Whoa.
We're dredging. As we dredge, we're going to be filling. We can make this an 85-acre terminal. That is really long-term growth.
So you're going to create land right there.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, where this is outlined, is that what is going to be filled in?
Yes. Yes.
So we probably have a rendering of what it's going to look like, right, with the new peninsula
We do.
on that master plan. See if you can find that,
yeah.
David. Wow, so you're actually creating more land right there off the causeway.
Correct.
And this was the old shrimp docks?
No, the shrimp docks, they're there.
They're still there.
Yeah, they're still there operating on that side. This group that with a long-term lease, they're an excellent group from Chile. They are in 20-plus countries, and they provide services from agencies to seaport terminal operations to logistics.
Wow.
So that is the
So
long-term.
this view
plan.
here, for people just listening, that you are essentially, what, quadrupling the current land that's there right
Absolutely.
now? Wow.
Absolutely.
And then also at the same time, dredging the channels and making it deeper for these big ships to come in.
Correct. So we call this the potential for an omni terminal. Omni with the multi-purpose use. Not only containers, not only steel or lumber or solar panels. We're seeing a tremendous activity of solar panels coming
Interesting.
in. So the future is tremendous for that. We're talking 15, 20, 25 years.
How does the timeline affect how you plan, right? Has shipping, I shouldn't say always have been done the same way, right? Things have changed, right? Where, we used to have wooden ships that cross the ocean. Now we don't. We have steel or whatever they use, iron. How is it changing recently with technology, and how are you building that into your new capital improvement program where you're building all these new peninsulas? Like, do you see containers being the main source of the way they're transferring goods across seas in the future? Will that change in 30 years? Because the timeline you're talking about is decades.
Absolutely. Container, it has taken off for the last 40, 50 years, but it will be just a sector of our industry. There will always going to be the bulk, the materials needed, the break bulk, and you see that it fluctuates depending on what's happening with another industry. We have seen that during COVID, for example, a lot of the container costs triple. A container that used to cost $5,000, $7,000 went up to $15,000, $20,000 from China to Tampa. So what did the shippers do? They charter break bulk ships, and they were bringing cargoes uncontainerized. But that's short term, so it fluctuates. Our long-term vision is we got to make our container terminals as efficient, as proficient as possible, and work with our tenants to build whatever they need. Because at times we build a bulkhead or a berth, and hopefully that is within a specific type of cargo commodities. For a bulk operation, for example, we don't need to pave a terminal. Now, if you want to handle steel products or lumber where you need machineries and all that, you got to pave. So the cost increases tremendously. And this is where we work with our tenants. They provide the capital and the minimum guarantees to the port in business for a long term. And with that, then we go after grants, and we have to apply and make sure that what we're doing is in line with the state's guidelines. And the future is great for us because not other port has this capability. No other port in Florida has this capability.
No, the opportunity at Port Tampa Bay is unbelievable.
Right.
There's a lot of grant money out there right now, right? With this new infrastructure bill that passed.
Yeah, it comes and goes, and it's not as easy. And sometimes we see that it's partisan, and it goes to certain areas. And sometimes you said it doesn't make sense, and my project was better. But hey,
there's politics involved in all of this.
Right. So our team is very active, both in Tallahassee and in Washington. And Paul does a great job leading our team, government affairs, and going and being in tune with our state representatives, knowing how important these projects are for the region. So we're very successful at that.
Yeah, I would
It's-
imagine so. Looking at all these plans, I don't want to call your job easy, right? But man, when you go to Tallahassee, meet with politicians or whoever is in charge of giving out these grants, kind of an easy sell to show them these opportunities. I mean, the growth
Everybody
is,
sees the potential, the growth that we're having, the impact that this is having in Florida's economy and our region.
yeah,
So yes, it's easy. It's not easy to be successful,
right.
but we do a great job at it. And our team, and I have to mention our team because from our board members to Paul, myself, our CE offices, and the whole team, you're looking at business development, marketing, communications here. We work hand in hand with engineering, operations, real estate, legal. We are a fine-tuned orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
This is who we are. And believe me, I've been to other ports that are more established. They don't do a third of what we do.
Wow.
We are very in tune, very focused, and we're succeeding. So it's great.
And when you're applying for a grant, you're competing with what? Houston, Jacksonville, all these other ports?
Yeah, it all depends. And then each grant is very specific.
Okay.
It has to contribute to A, B, and C. Are you shovel ready? Meaning how much you can move. So, and sometimes we get disappointed. For example, a few months ago, we had been applying there were 3 grants, and we had a new tenant. And the first grant, we did not qualify. So he calls me and says, I think we're in trouble. We didn't get a grant. I said, it's part of the process. Give us some time. 2 months later, $22 million.
Wow.
Well,
Now that 22 million, I saw that in the Business Journal.
Yes.
It's a resiliency project essentially, right? Burying power lines.
what? No, that is different.
Is that a separate one?
This is separate. This is going to extend that berth. This is going to create and provide a new supply chain that is going to have ramifications of tremendous magnitude. Because this tenant is such a quality. It's such a that they bought in this vision. They wanted to be here, and right now our real estate team and business development, we are in constant calls from other countries, people that are saying, I want to participate in Florida's growth. And of course, they look at, when they come to the region, they may look at Port Manatee, but they end up in Tampa.
We talked about a little bit of goods and services, some economic benefits the port provides. But what about people moving here? Do these companies have executives move to Tampa because of the presence?
Absolutely. This company,
Or even just not just executives, but workers.
Yes.
And yeah.
Yeah, they all do. For example, this company they signed to 2 long-term leases with us, separate leases. They became tenants at our building. They're going to have their offices there. Their executive team will be there, sales team. So
Wow.
it's
a lot of high-paying jobs.
high-paying jobs. We have helped them in locating their schools, where they're going to live, and they are part of our community. And this is just starting soon.
Do you have the numbers on how many people work at the port, including your tenants, the businesses that occupy your building?
I'm going to think, and we are hoping to release our economic impact study within the next few days.
Oh, cool. We'll put it out.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that would be great. So I think we're going to be very impressed. We are quickly approaching, it's about 192,000 jobs impacted by the port. These are direct jobs, indirect jobs, and induced, meaning the ones that labor on the terminals throughout, the ones that labor on logistics and distribution, that serve the distribution centers, and even on the fuel sector. How do we impact the airports? When you look at airports, fuel costs are 30% of an airline's operating cost. It's huge.
Massive.
So we are impacting tourism as well.
Wow.
So, and we're going to be approaching, it's not only the sales consumption of those jobs, what they produce, but the taxes that they pay. And I don't know if I should give a number but I hope
Oh,
it's
come
gonna.
on.
I hope it's gonna be over $30 billion a year,
Wow.
and
30 billion.
it's so important uh, for this region. And this is we all look forward to that, and we all need our communities to understand
I think we all
what we do.
realized how important it was after the storm when
Yes.
people didn't have gas for a few days.
It
And
takes
then you had the Florida Highway Patrol escorting gas trucks from the port to the gas stations. It kind of clicked for me. I was like, wow, there's a massive logistical operation going on right downtown.
it takes a disaster to open
Yeah.
eyes, but
Right.
unfortunately, we need to be prepared every year, and we
Yeah.
are. We're our team. We do a great job in emergency preparation with all of our tenants.
Yeah.
We do sessions of what to do, what to expect. So this is not that we get surprised.
Well, and what do you make of Port Manatee? They had, what was it, 200 million in damage?
Yes, and it's so unfortunate that anybody gets hit, and of course we all become selfish because I was traveling at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I said, I don't want anybody to get hit, but please shift it a little bit somewhere.
Right.
Don't let Tampa Bay get hit. You imagine if this storm comes 40, 50 miles north.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of getting to is like, the port, seeing these two storms come in, obviously you had a little damage, but I wouldn't say it was detrimental to the supply chain and logistics. Port Manatee got hammered.
Yes.
I'm sure the port has thought, what happens if something like that hits us?
Yes, and we're prepared. And of course, is the wind and the water surge, and we were listening to if this storm comes in head on, 12 to 15 feet of water. So for those people that lost homes, furniture, their clothing, belongings, we would have been in real trouble.
They said the water would have been about twice as high as it was during Helene.
That's right.
Which is an incredible fact.
That's right.
I mean, 12 to 15 feet of surge. You probably have water coming up over the cresting the wall
Yes.
at the port and maybe getting into those gas tanks. I mean, it would be a serious disaster.
Yeah.
And if we were 4 days out of gas here in Tampa with Milton, if we got a direct hit,
You imagine 2 weeks
right,
or more.
right.
Then that
Now,
is
how can the port, through partnerships with the federal government's working on resiliency right now. I saw Kathy Castor announced some sort of a grant funding to bury power lines for resiliency. How much of a focus is resiliency, and what is the port doing? in
very
regards to that?
focused. Very focused. Yeah, we were working with TICO. We are doing this project already investing. We got a grant of $7 million out of the cost, so it's a 50-50 match. TICO is investing $4.5 million. They are elevating their substation, so it's a great partnership to work with TICO and to help the port and the fuel distribution and so on. So that's what we need more of.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, when you hear almost half of the fuel in the state comes from this port
Yeah.
and all these other goods, wow, we better make sure we're building resiliency.
Correct.
And doing what we can, because these storms are going to continue. Just a fact of living in Florida.
Unfortunately, it seems that way, and now they all seem to come up from the Gulf, not transatlantic. We have another Raphael coming in, and I think it's moving west, but
but you never know.
You'll never know.
It's never know. Well, listen, Raul, thank you so much for coming on the pod. This was a really good conversation.
Well, if you enjoyed it, I have enjoyed it, and I want to come back when we are close to getting
Please.
a lot of those good news and do a follow-up. But first, you're going to come to the port and get a tour.
I got to do a tour, and I cannot wait to see the master plan, what you guys come up with, and how it'll all interact with all the growth in Tampa. You guys are a huge part of that, and I know you want to be, right? The cruise ships come here. You mentioned Tampa's a destination city. When those people come here on cruises and they're not just hopping in a cab, getting on the cruise and leaving, that helps our city. It sells our city to people. It makes people want to move here, and people want to spend their money here and open businesses here. It's good for us to have the cruise ships. It's good for us to have this port. The question for everyone, not for me, right? I'm just sitting here thinking about all this, but the question is, how does it interact in the future all together? And how does it stay connected, and how does the port, not only the port, but these other entities around the port not interfere, but coexist in a way where they can all get along and the cruise ship passengers can enjoy, and it's like this fluid
Look,
place.
We don't need to invent anything. It's been done in other major cities.
Right.
And you have walkability, a pedestrian access, high, with parks and so on that doesn't interfere.
Mm-hmm.
We have regulations for our cruise industry that we must abide. Can it coexist? We believe so. And it's putting it all together. It's going to be interesting to work on this plan, and it's not just us, but with our partners.
You'll get it done. I'm confident.
I'm confident too.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks again.
Thank you, my friend.
I appreciate it.
All right.
All righty. Bye, everyone. See you next week. Hey, guys, if you want to watch episodes just like this one, make sure to click right here to view the rest of our full episodes. And also make sure to subscribe by clicking right here. Thank you for watching.